We continue from page 62. We've been talking about the overnight celebration for us in preparation for circumcision. Such occasion overnight led to many boys and girls mingling overnight, as they sang and circulating the candidate. They met and talked, either agreed or some were forcefully actually engaged into the act, that is sex. That's when Moses actually also found his chance during the varsity celebration and laid down Brenda just days before he also got circumcised. He actually called Brenda to some cunning moves and slept with her, an inevitable saga. Violet, uh, his, uh, his sister, actually had planned all that scheme. Carefully, she executed the innocent toddler to lie down and wait. Moses successfully helped himself. I could see him triumphantly enjoy the hardest score of his lifetime. Violet indeed helped Moses secure what he had failed for the first, second, and the third rounds of approaches, you see. Brenda was young, innocent, and careful with herself, absconded to whoever lured her to some sexual intercourse. Perhaps she pronounced "Nimechil," our youth slogan for abstinence till marriage. She was committed to her father's advice to pursue education. That day, she jumped from she, she jumped from the truth into the realities of life, became possessed with what she had tried to taste in that very night. Such memories stayed put in her mind and dreamt the beauty of a man's weight within her chest, caressing and smoothing her nerves. She also fell to sleep with somebody's bosom. She was actually plunged into confusion and dilemma. She became undecided between achieving her values, that's the and the, between her values and a good time for pleasure with a person of an opposite sex. And many more teenagers underwent such confusion. And that's how many beautiful dreams of many young ones will likely end up into nightmares. Zakayo one day popped his head to school. He sat behind the class. Teacher Tyson read off his register, and upon finishing, he realized a gentleman sat behind. His name would not be found in the register. He never minded. He took his detail and asked him, the new student, to up his commitment. That is to come to school early and participate fully to the school lessons and also the co-curricular activities. A long-bearded man played about his mustache as he scorned on the blackboard, trying to grasp something from the blackboard. The scribbled figures on the blackboard became hard for him actually to jolt the same things on his booklet. Enthusiastic to mingle with the society and partake what the other people were actually doing, that is coming to school, he made an appointment to come again the following day. On his arrival, he found Teacher Quata with a stick by the door. Gentleman, are you part of us? Our school or one of our school groundsman? You must be our new gardener. Huh? Mr. Quata observed a gentleman carried a small bag behind with some booklet within, ready and prepared to take lessons. Oh, I'm sorry, gentleman. You must be a new student here. But you see, you come to school late, as late as 9. Do you think this is your farm where you can just pop in at your will? So you must lie down and get some sense in your head. Something to remind you that tomorrow you should come to school early. This is one of the school rules and regulations. I mean, we must observe the school discipline. Sakai observed the seriousness of the matter. Mr. Quada had no smiling face. The fact that he would lie down while all eyes craned on him, probably his children were also in the same class, to see and observe his father crunch in pain. Such was a mission impossible. Malim, what do you say? Holding tight to his fist, ready to box anyone who dare touch him. Malim, Onyaliwi. He gave his wordings in the Bukosu dialect. Teacher, you want a fight. And for sure, he had pulled himself up ready for a fight. Mr. Quata, sensing the danger, he winced and pulled back, called out for the white administrators for assistance. Zakayo knew he would be overpowered. He sprang to his feet and dashed to the bush nearby, straight and back to his grazing field. He never stepped back to class again, and many more stubborn boys also did the same and never stepped in class to observe the lessons. Pastor Benjamin, who actually humbled himself and observed rules to the latter. Now season had passed by, new development had been observed to the society and to the individuals. Individuals mean physical, emotional, and psychological growth. I had shadowed Brenda and protected her all that time. She hid behind me whenever somebody scolded her in school. Brenda made herself perfect to learn and pursue her lessons. Unlike Moses, who occasionally gave her advances and disturbed her peace, I warned him, giving him several chances to refrain. The day of reckoning never failed to come. Before Moses lifted his hand and passed by the warmth of her laps and touched on the vital point, the young toddler sprang to her legs and found Teacher Tyson sitting in the staff room office. Mwalim, can you imagine? This boy here wants to touch here on my point here. He always wants to play his fingers inside, giving the direction by index finger and pointed to the vital point. Tyson was never amused. Boys of each of his schools are used to that, and ladies also were contented, but not to this young girl. He had committed, who had actually been taken care of her. Brenda had committed herself for the cause of studying, vowed by the death of her mother, and also Teacher Tyson also had vowed by the death of her mother to do something important for the kid, perhaps educate her and see to it that she becomes somebody reasonable in the future. Run to class. Ask Nasambu to bring him here. Tyson responded, absorbed in deep thought. Nasambu had the fashion of the story. Brenda explicitly narrated the love portion Moses had been pestering on her. Nasambu raged. Her boyfriend had been cheating on her. How dare Moses do that to you? He forgot his mother and stooped down to a young toddler. Wait and see. He will have his discipline today, and never to repeat his mischievous again. He will never abandon me for another girl after I'm through with him. Nasambu exclaimed. She took up Moses' shoulder high and threw him to the staff room. You've heard of her story, yeah. What's your suggestion? What do we do with such a young man making fun with our students? Teacher Tyson asked Nasambu. Some discipline, of course. Such boys are going to ruin the whole school if nothing won't be done to give him some sense and fear to repeat himself going after girls. Nasambu rolled over the case. If you don't mind, a stick or nyaonyo, there it is at the staff room corner. He said, pointing his finger for some direction to the corner. There laid all sorts of tools for discipline: sticks, metals, nyaonyo, that of a cow's tail, and clubs. Ha, teacher, a stick won't do anything to this stubborn man. A stick will just scratch his buttocks. Let me have nyaonyo. It's sweet to this kind of gentleman. Nasambu began to administer her discipline, a mixed reaction of passion and revenge. Passion to what she always liked doing as a school head girl, and a revenge motive to retaliate on her boyfriend cheating on her. In a matter of moments, bristles of sweat rolled down her cheek. Moses groaned in pain, down on an empty floor, sometimes stepped on by his girlfriend, administering new dosages of discipline. I swear by the sword that circumcised me, I will marry to that woman that has cost me all this beating. I will marry Brenda. I wasn't Maybe I'm not a man, that's in English. I will make her also feel what has been done to me. Moses muttered to himself as he dashed off from the staff room. That way, he ran out and escaped from the triangle discipline. That was a ground, 3-squared corner where notorious peoples were placed and serious discipline administered. All the teachers available and happened in his hand itching to cane someone, he will do so. Therefore, all the teachers in the staff room will go round and round, caning one single pupil, or cane the whole class. Never at one given time will you admire to be sentenced to that triangle discipline. That's a death sentence. The local school had just been built some few miles from my father's homestead. We had taken our classes and attended our elementary studies from that joint. A mud-walled classroom of 7 laid in a 3-acre piece of farm, grass-thatched, just few miles away from the famous Mianga market, the only one and oldest market in our region. A market that harbored all the neighboring communities, those are the Bukusu, the Tesus, and the Bahayos. Mr. Hatete was a friend of white people. He had learned some good things from the whites when he worked from them in the capital city. He was actually enrolled for the East African Airways company that he was employed, and later came along with the white missionaries. He had some good knowledge about the outside world than our ordinary native people. Our Bukusu boys of those days will not tell anything about our village, more than our village. Hatete never sat in class to learn how to speak and write English, but he had worked with the whites in the missionary work, and he also began communicating in their language. He traveled a lot with them. He saw and learned many things that went on and outside our village. He knew a lot, especially also the world around. Here he came a sorrow with World War II. He narrated the explorers Ludwig Graf, a missionaries John Repman, also the navigating Dr. Livingstone. He never saw anything good and kept silent in his lips, but he came and also gave us all the narrations. He also narrated terrifying moments of whites fighting with their own black people in the forest. In some other places far from our region, thus in the mountain region, in the forest, more forest, he gave us the story that took place there. He observed with keen interest and admired such beautiful things that happened to be outside our village, and the thought of it to be installed in our home yet. Those are our days when we had few elite people. He would ask himself, when will an angel descend from heaven and change the minds of a black African child, full of this ignorance and diseases, brightened his mind, and that is the angel to brighten the angel to brighten the mind of an African boy and see the light. Even the Mzungos, the white man, booklet, that is the Bible, had been written and underlined that an African child suffer not from the foolishness, but harbors enough malady after he lack enough knowledge and many means to understand himself, and for that he suffer a lot from ignorance, such that many had perished from that. Having a dream makes you have a vision. If you don't have any vision, you are as good as a dead. You won't have anything to live for. You are absolutely nothing. You have absolutely nothing also to struggle for. Those were words that came out of Mr. Hatete's mouth. He addressed people back in our village. In meetings, he had assembled to speak something to their skull. Words that would pop his chest if he would not let them off his mouth. People liked him so much with his good news. Every single word from his lip was a sweet. It was a peremende as sweet to the ears of optimism and a rebuke to the ears of lazy. He gave hope for doubting Thomases. He went round and round, addressing them in various meetings. He spoke of many good things he had experienced outside our village. For the first time, I heard of a Bungoma center from Hatete mouth, a big market center in the east where whites had settled and built nice structured houses, very different from our kind. They were cemented houses with big. Also heard of new projects that had been installed. There was a big school that people after elementary studies joined to pursue further education. There was also a big prison for the strong men and women who had accurately defied the white rules. They served in their unlimited sentence, jail for life. Africans with social mistakes were confined in that place for punishment, a correctional facilities. But the worst thing is that most of them never finished their terms of jail. They were brought back home in coffins, emaciated or limping. There was also a big machine on your way to Lake Sango, just beside the homestead of King Nabongo Mumia of the Wanga people in the south. That machine was able to crush our local sugar grass into very small particles called sugar. Whites will actually mix such sugar in their hot boiled water, add some milk and a nice chocolate, a nice cocoa, a nice sweet delicious energetic drink will be found. Tea. Stirred well with our homegrown tea leaves, those are keteba, tea leaves, they stimulated their nerves and brains to think better, contrary to our grandfathers who puffed their smoking sticks to open up something in their minds, but ended up with black suits that covered their minds, and also blackening our skin melanin so that we became black and grew up with dark skin, a pure African skin. The Wazungus, the whites, took such tea in the morning before they began their day's activities and added with some caffeine. They were at their best to think proper, while our fellow Africans woke up very early to till white farms in an empty stomach. The whites also molested them with overloads of work, strained their black intestine, had labor on an empty stomach. Africans persevered with no place or to anyone to confine to, and launched their complaint of inhuman, treacherous masters. Absolutely nowhere to shed our tears, launch our complaints and claim for our rights. No representation in the white Wazungus, the white rules. After all, no one had known that we Africans were equally important before God, with equal rights before the eyes of God, and if then the whites knew, then they were more superior with more rights than our baseless demands. She's dead, I will ask, to give a helping hand to a collapsed woman. Never mind her, such are lazy ones, Mr. Rodin retorted as he lashed more whips to the behinds of an exhausted African woman tilling farms for their white masters. Mr. Hatete gave us many and more interesting stories. He also wanted to change our locals to aspire for the good new things that had developed outside. I also felt something nagging me. Maybe I had developed a curiosity of a rat to become a good learning person like him and also change my environment. In fact, from the person sitting next to me will become the first victim of my changing times before my fellow other bunch of evolving Homo sapiens. I managed to change Naliaka into liking school lessons. I also began asking people to embrace the new changes. I was a son of a chief, and so I had privileges to represent my father whenever it was necessary, such that I took and participated in the village meetings. I took such opportunities and utilized them maximally to drum up our new message of good hope. Katede and I observed some same ideologies. We flocked together, attending various meetings. I carried his luggage, an altar boy of a political priest. People liked him so much for his ambition and aspiration. He woke up very early before most villages to create time and opportunity so that he materialized his dreams. He carried expensive words on his lips. Every word he spat carried enough weight of a hammer to break the nuts of a fool. If you don't have a dream, you're dead. You lie comfortably like a dead dog. If you have a dream, you will have something to live for. Those those words were not taken well with some pessimist boys. How could Hatete abuse them with intangible hopes? They were already rich. Why should they struggle for unseen materialistic of the world, yet they lived comfort? Why should they struggle for the knowledge, yet they have everything in their within? Unless the whites who had actually arrived and were busy destabilizing their good times with the forced labor and heavy taxes imposed on them, most villagers had no dreams and nothing else to bother them. They could sleep even after second cockcrow. Even after that, they woke up, assembled in their age groups, and fumbled for stories while they drank. After all, food was not a problem. There was plenty women. Folks had the duty of making meals for their men before men pulled off their dirty bed sheets to go and join their fellow for stories. Optimism seems like Matthew Temba volunteered to assist Katete. He would collect willing persons to take secondary lessons, sat them under a tree and treated for secondary lesson. Given that the primary had been put in place with the assistance of the whites and the locals in the spirit of Harambe, Temba would go ahead and tutor willing persons for secondary lesson, while Tyson and fellow primary teachers prepared the lesson for their primary learners. Teacher Temba single-handedly encouraged and tutored under a tree few entries of John Victor High School, John Victor Hatete High School, and that was the genesis of Mianga High School. I took and perused many letters Naliaka had jolted Scrapol's passion to me. I noted that he had improved on her understanding and began making sensible sentences. She had actually improved on her academics as well. That is after what I had actually began also. And that's how else I had also changed Naliaka to like schools. Mr. Hatete would not sleep well. He woke up very early and began his duty. He walked steadfast and raced dust behind like a man on the run. He had a sense of purpose and confidence. The only other person he could meet on his way, that is very early morning, was Kamau, the shepherd, while he came from Chevet's hut. While Hatete was thin, slender man, Kamau was short, fat man. Hatete was poor, materialistic, but rich in mind. Kamau was poor in mind, but rich with food items. They exchanged greetings as they passed each other and moved on to pursue their different goals. Those were days when people had absolutely nothing to bother them. They had enough food items to keep them going. They had nothing to do with Vision 2030. We want to talk about Millennium Goals and discuss something much more of importance. Hatete became more busy. He crisscrossed the whole village teaching them the good news. Although he was married, he had very little time for his wife. Most ladies in the village admired him, but he had limited time to give them ears. If it were that a man's figure trotted a woman, then no woman would have wished to fall in love with him. He had a thin, slender figure with bones that wobbled as he took stray steps walking, but the sweetness of nice words in his lips kept their breaths awake. Admired to hear more, they drew themselves closer and closer. Actually, men also nodded their heads in disbelief and inquired of some more explanation. Will you come again? How did Livingstone fly like a bird all the way from the white land? Did he have wings? I used to have seen him stumbling down with his heavy stomach. Moses shouted amid his surprised keen listeners. Stupid and reckless minds will always pull you down. No, he never flew. A big ship navigated slowly in the ocean waters and docked in our coastlands. Hatete expounded on his message, dismissed women salivating for him in bed. He gave no ears to such delilahs. Even to his two wives he was married to, they complained alone. He had little time for them. The first wife actually endured the pain of a lonely marriage, but the second one gave up and went back home, perhaps to seek an advice from parents. She wanted to be guided on what she ought to do from a boring first marriage. After he had not seen her man within her doors for the 3 consecutive market days. Even after night, she slept hopefully that her man will knock her doors. She will welcome her, clean up his tired limbs, feed him, and prepare him for the bed. But she never saw her man. She actually wanted her man to sleep on her. She covered herself for some warmth, but that was not enough. She didn't have a pillow. A piece of goat skin gave some weight on her breast, but nevertheless, she wanted her man in between her thighs. She sobbed and felt the pleasure all alone. The first wife had already 2 children, therefore it was difficult. Now she actually stopped and felt the pleasure all alone, waiting for her tete to come, but he was never seen for 3 consecutive market days. While the first wife had already 2 children, therefore it was quite difficult for her to abandon her husband. It will be difficult for her to get another man. Therefore, as you know, our culture did not allow a man to take share to take or share shoes with another man. Those are our days when women were patient for their men, they were submissive. Unlike some days when a woman abandons his man, snored in bed in the matrimonial house, and quickly rushes to some bush for another man waiting for her. She would accept to be touched on, caressed, and slept on by another man outside her marriage in the name of love or friendship. What a broken fabric in our society. Hatete continued with his spirit, never acted to appeal to the interests of people, but stuck to his objective and the need of social demands.